Odin, a name that echoes through myth and time, conjuring power, wisdom, and mystery. An icon, eternal. The idea that we have in our minds of Odin may very well be something akin to the classic archetype of the wizened wizard who guides those who need wisdom. Gandalf, the powerful yet gentle wizard who champions Frodo, Dumbledore guiding Harry, even Obi-Wan Kenobi, the master who guided Luke Skywalker, steps into the long lineage of the wise mentor. Wasn't it Odin, the Norse Allfather, that these iconic bearded characters were based on? Unfortunately, the resemblance ends at the long white beard. In all other ways, Odin was in fact the absolute embodiment of self-interest that empowers no one else but himself. In his countless self-serving quests for wisdom, power, and transcendence, he carved a legacy of cold ambition, marked by obsession, ruthless detachment, and a relentless hunger for dominion. A truth long buried beneath the myths we tell today. Welcome back, Voyagers of the Vortex. If you are enjoying these videos, please do take a moment to like, subscribe, and even share this video, for it is your engagement that keeps the Vortex alive. And now, let us step further into the depraved wills of immortal gods, whose needs and wants transcend our mere mortal lives. According to the vanilla Wikipedia version of who Odin was, he was the Allfather, the chief of the Aesir tribe of gods, son of Bor and Bestla, husband to Frigg, with whom he had a playful and warm relationship. They would often place light-hearted wagers on Odin's various quests. Their union produced many children, the most notable of which was Thor, Baldr, and Vali. Odin and his brother slayed the primordial giant Ymir, and through their fierce world-shaping battle, the cosmos was born. When Odin forged the sky from Ymir's shattered skull, the earth from his vast corpse, and let the seas flow from the giant's blood. He was the one to breathe life into the first two humans. Mankind's very existence is all thanks to Odin. His harrowing sacrifices were all so that mankind could become greater, smarter, and more advanced. He gave up his eye and hung himself from a tree for 9 days. In return for his painful, disfiguring sacrifices, he gained the knowledge of the runes and the magic they contained, healing, fortune in battle, and communication beyond the mortal realm. He obtained the Mead of Poetry, the elixir that grants eloquence, artistic expression, and inspiration, not to mention more wisdom than any god or man could dream of possessing. Not only did he share his gifts freely with mortals, he also welcomed the brave and the good into Valhalla. He is the overall patron of war and death, and the beginning and the end of the world. How many more talents could one being possess, even a god? Even his spear, Gungnir, his beloved companions, the ravens Huginn and Muninn, his wolves Geri and Freki, are the most powerful of their species. And this is just a fraction of Odin's full story, and the good words that we know of. So he must be all-powerful, divine, and utterly without fault, right? For only the perfect being could deserve to have so much control over the entire world. Fantastical and selfless, sure. Impressive, certainly. Yet our current understanding of Odin conveniently skates over the more distasteful aspects of his nature. So, let us take a deeper dive into these overlooked truths, starting with his seemingly selfless quests, rife with suffering and pain, that we thought were for the betterment of mankind. You must understand that Odin was relentless in his pursuit of knowledge. It had nothing to do with empowering humans. His sacrifices were only for himself, and his obsession to possess more and more power. All of those abilities he gained changed and warped him into something that was completely separate from both mere gods and men. He became something more akin to the primordial void he'd defeated to create the world in the first place. Every skill and piece of knowledge he gained now had one ultimate goal: the power to command fate. For example, he did not simply gain the aptitude to converse with the deceased in some removed psychic sense. No. Odin used necromancy, the defiling of corpses, to do so. This dark and sinister craft allowed him to bring back the dead, using the reanimated bodies for his own causes. Many, even the Norsemen that revered him, considered this heinous act as the ultimate sin that no mortal or god could atone for. And Odin's 9-day trial, where he hung from the Norse's sacred world tree, Yggdrasil's trunk, impaled by his own spear. All the gods were against this. They warned him, many outright begged him, not to perform a reckless and dangerous sacrifice, the prize of which was to control fate if he managed to survive those 9 days. Not because they feared that he would die, but because of how utterly dangerous the power to control fate could be in any being's hands. Never mind a psychotic god with an obsessive streak to enforce his will on those around him. An obsessive streak that meant he cared not even for the ultimate demise of his own children. His relationships with his wife, children, the gods, and mankind were fraught with tension. Almost always because Odin's ruthless decisions, at their expense, were all done in the pursuit of power, wisdom, and his fascination with controlling fate. Odin knew that his son Baldr was going to die, yet he did nothing to stop it from happening, casting all of the gods, and most of all, Frigg, into a deep mourning. His disregard for his wife didn't stop at allowing their children to die. Odin bedded any god and giant that he set his sights on, leading to a life for Frigg full of pain, humiliation, and loss, all at the hands of her soulless husband. Thor, another of Odin's many sons from various women, had an equally strained relationship with his father. Thor despised Odin's trickery, secrecy, and his lack of remorse for the people that the gods were supposed to rule over. They fought constantly over Odin's lack of feeling when it came to the suffering that his insatiable hunger for power caused to others. Not surprisingly, if Odin could not achieve what he wanted through sacrifice, then he would cheat, lie, and steal. His battle against the giant Vafthrûfnir, where he used disguise and trickery, just one of many, many tales of how he would always get his way. Even his constant leniency with Loki caused outright war among the gods on more than one occasion. He allowed Loki to get away with terrible deeds, purely out of curiosity, to see how far the recklessly destructive trickster would take things. Loki openly mocked the gods, once stealing the apples of youth in an attempt to strip away their immortality so that they would die mortal deaths. He cut off Sif's hair and aligned himself with all of the enemies of Asgard, declaring open war against the gods. Yet, Odin never did a thing to stop him. It was all of the rest that caught and imprisoned Loki, without Odin even lifting a finger. Not that he ever intended to. But Odin's treatment of the gods and his toying with fate cannot compare to the hideous treatment of humans, for whom he regarded as nothing more than playthings. Odin's gifts were never mere blessings out of the goodness of his heart. Instead, they were bargains wrapped in shadow and promises laced with poison. He bestowed power and wisdom upon kings, but always for a price that usually ended in their immense suffering or causing them profound loss. Those who knelt before him found themselves ensnared in a dance with destiny, their victories hollow, their reigns tainted. Betrayal, downfall, and violent ends awaited those who carried the weight of his so-called gifts. To the warrior Starkaðr, Odin granted great strength, but with it, a cruel fate. 3 lifetimes of suffering, a cursed existence that denied him peace. He was not a man, but a pawn, crafted and moulded for Odin's unseen design, forced to walk the earth as an instrument of the All-Father's will, forever bound to misery. Even the sacred Mead of Poetry, something so pure-intentioned and beautiful, was actually stolen through deceit and death. The giant Suttungr was slain, his daughter Gunnlod seduced and abandoned, her trust shattered, for the sake of Odin's thirst for wisdom. Though humanity gained the gift of poetry and the arts, the act bore the scars of treachery. The All-Father's hunger for knowledge was limitless, and neither god nor mortal could escape the price of his schemes. Odin's grasp on fate was absolute, yet his mercy toward mankind was thin as a thread. It's because of this that the gods deeply distrusted Odin. It was his doing that brought forth Ragnarok, the end battle when Loki will be freed so that the gods can face down with the trickster, alongside his giants and monsters, one last time. Odin knows full well how Ragnarok will end. He knows the coming doom of the gods, and his control over fate has allowed him to foresee even his own death during this battle. But he has not let any of the gods in on what will happen, nor the various actions that could be taken to avoid the calamity altogether. He's made it clear that only 2 humans will survive, and a handful of gods will barely make it out alive to rebuild the world from scratch. He made it sound like this utterly devastating battle, resulting in the deaths of billions of humans and most of the gods and their children, is somehow a blessing, an opportunity to start anew. Now, we've covered Ragnarok and the true nature of apocalypses in various forms in another video, and while we find the focus there on rebirth and hope both fascinating and deeply relevant, in this case, the reason behind Ragnarok comes first, remembering, of course, that mythology, myth, and legend are forever shifting, constantly morphing and being reinterpreted. The reason this truly monumental and pivotal Ragnarok unfolds in this version is Odin, and he's done his best to sugarcoat the absolutely appalling consequences of his own actions. In doing so, he draws attention to themes of rebirth, renewal, and hope for the future, rather than acknowledging the fact that it's his choices that have doomed the cosmos to implode, as gods and giants tear each other apart. And all of this because Odin simply couldn't stop himself. In his endless pursuit of absolute power, at any cost. Even his death during Ragnarok does not mark the end for Odin and his ways. Instead of giving up his title of Allfather and righting his wrongs, he plays chessmaster in Valhalla, training the heroes who have earned their place in the Nordic heaven by commanding mock battles to weed out the mediocre warriors from the strongest ones. Those that fought battles on Earth do not get eternal peace that they deserve. Instead, they battle without end, and those that die in Valhalla are erased from all existence permanently, without a second thought or any true release from their eternity of servitude in blood. So, for eternity, Odin lives the full knowledge that if he continues on his obsessive quest to collect knowledge and souls, that he, his wife, children, and nearly all of the gods will die indefinitely during Ragnarok. He could atone for his sins and give up his all-consuming compulsion for knowledge and ultimate control to prevent all of this death and destruction. Yet he plows on this path, regardless of the consequences. Why? Well, by now it is clear. Odin has only ever existed to serve himself, and in doing so, the world has served him faithfully. But have the gods and mortals followed out of true devotion, or out of fear? Perhaps it's not loyalty at all, but the grim realization that there is no other choice. No choice but to align with his wishes. No future to be found outside the shadow of the most powerful being in all of Norse existence. Odin's solitary wanderings through the vast expanse of the cosmos are driven by a hunger that knows no bounds, a ceaseless pursuit of wisdom that serves only himself. He is not bound by the petty laws of gods or men, nor does he honor notions of fairness, justice, or the fragile morality that mortals cling to. In the grand scheme of his designs, such things are meaningless distractions. He is the master of fate, the unseen hand that pulls the strings of existence, and he will not yield that power. Not to his own blood, not to the world itself. If the cost of preserving his dominion demands the sacrifice of his own children, so be it. If the fabric of reality must unravel, he will let it burn, rather than suffer the indignity of losing his grip on destiny. And we, the insignificant mites caught in his wake, are nothing more than dust beneath his feet, fleeting lives that exist only as useless obstacles in his eternal game. We are forced to dance to the motion of his hand, struggling against invisible threads that bind us to his will. Odin's march is relentless, and it does not stop. He strides forward, dragging the universe toward its inevitable ruin, and when the end comes, we will fall with him. Not as warriors, not as victors, but as the sacrifices of a god too consumed by his own thirst for supremacy to allow the world to survive without him. So, there we have it. Odin. What more can we say? Thank you for watching, and please do consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video. There's plenty more to come. Now, the biggest question of all. Can you see even just a little of Odin in yourself? The merest hint of selfishness, regardless of cost. And with this, what does Odin and his many tales teach us? What does it warn us of? A little musing to leave you with. Until next time.